1. LB was obsessed with lollies. He always wanted to watch anime on our projector, take it home with him, and he tried a few times to steal flash drives that we would bring in that had episodes of anime on it for the projector days. He always had his messenger bag, a big bag with one long strap that goes over one shoulder, with really young-looking girls in very little clothing or just strategically placed objects to hide their nipples and crotch. He had greasy dark brown hair that he dyed constantly to be dark red or white, but it would usually fade fast and turn either pink or some kind of blondish ramen yellow. He always had his hair slicked back in a ponytail and said it made him look elegant, and was also the worst one when it came to his neck beardiness. He was about 200 pounds and very unclean. WB constantly wore very tight shirts that showed a lot of his stomach or hip bones, with Japanese writing on them or those tacky, traditionally drawn ocean waves, and Japanese rising suns on them. He was a little more overweight than LB, and he wore glasses, but we all suspected that they had no prescriptions since he would take them off to read sometimes, but he claimed to be farsighted. He cut his hair shorter than the other two, so it was about jaw length, and he had parted it straight down the middle like the McDonald's Golden Arch. GB braided his hair because he wanted to look like a dark elf, and he was very tall and thin, maybe a little bit of chub, but absolutely no muscle. He loved wearing cargo shorts and stuffing the pockets with cards from crap like Digimon or D&D, and he would pull them out and play with them with his friends constantly, but we all know how he loved to collect cards of stuff that looked even remotely feminine, and he would favor the ones that were very scantily dressed, and hold those in his favorite pocket, a hidden one on the inside of his waistband. He loved digging around in it and pulling out sticky, sweaty, bent cards with women printed on them. So I started college a while back, and I even joined a club. Don't be mad, but it's an anime club, so I probably should have guessed this would happen. My boyfriend was in the club first before me, and had a bunch of friends in it, and a few girls I knew, so I had a nice first impression of it generally. And that made me comfortable enough to be in the club. I joined during my first semester of college, and I felt like it was heaven. Everybody there was just as much of a dork as I was, and none of them tried to fetishize me. Then everything changed when the neckbeards attacked. Second semester went smoothly until 3 neckbeards joined the club, and decided they all knew more than us since we weren't smart enough like them. All of my boyfriend's friends were very nice looking, obviously took showers and cared at least a little bit about how we looked and smelled. So the neckbeards acted like an avian race. We would all talk about manga we read. We'd watch movies on a projector on certain weekdays, take turns bringing in snacks, etc. And the 3 neckbeards hated what we did, and demanded we all did something more tasteful. They always stared at the girls in the group, including me, even though my boyfriend is very PDA with me even in front of them. And one of the girls in the club even left because the neckbeards would crowd around her, sit on either side of her and press their bodies against her. She might have been able to handle that, but they would moan if she tried to push them away from her, and would tell her to touch them more. The guys of the group constantly told them to stop because it made them uncomfortable, but the neckbeards would tell any guys that told them to stop, "You just wish you were us, girls are all over us and we get so much pussy. She's just shy being around such testosterone-driven men. A manlet like you should just sit back and watch," despite almost all of the other guys in the group having girlfriends. None of us really knew the leader of the club or when they would come in, so when we reported the activity to them and said the neckbeards should be kicked out for inappropriate behavior, they just said they would observe the club's activities soon. The neckbeards apparently donated a lot of money for the club and said they needed to be making decisions on how we spend our time and schedule things or what we would watch. But the club leader ignored them and thanked them for their donations. The neckbeards then made it all a big point that we should treat them like kings because apparently they were going to own the club soon and would confiscate the projector that my boyfriend lent the club to watch anime on, My boyfriend was very clear that it belonged to him and not the club. They did take it one day when we ran out of snacks and my boyfriend offered to drive to the store to get Arizonas and chips, etc. And LB apparently stuffed it into his messenger bag and hid the bag under one of the tables near the door. We borrowed the room of a very nice teacher we knew on campus, and they only said we had to keep the room clean. It just so happened to be the day we watched anime, and when we couldn't find the projector, we looked in my boyfriend's car, around the room, etc. But one of the remaining girls, I'll call her SG for sweet girl, saw the cord of the projector coming out of LB's bag, and she pulled it out and called him out on stealing my boyfriend's property. LB went livid and, confidently, approached her with his man-booby chest puffed out, and then yanked it away from her. The conversation went like this.
"Excuse you? How dare you accuse me of theft? This is obviously my projector that I brought in case someone was unreliable and didn't bring theirs."
But I saw Elle's boyfriend bring his in earlier, and I put the USB in it. The USB is right there, plugged into the projector.
"Silence, woman! You know nothing compared to me. You will not talk back!"
LB now starts putting the projector back into his bag as SG trembled in fear from being yelled at, and looks like she will cry.
"I'm going home because some ignorant bitch has ruined my mood."
BF walked in while LB was yelling and asked what the problem was after LB announced he was going home. But he went pale after he saw BF. He took your projector." My boyfriend looks around the room and see it isn't on the table and looks at me for affirmation. I nod. "LB, can I see your projector?" LB huffs and pulls it out of his bag. He managed to pull the USB, so that was gone too, but I could tell SG and I both saw this. BF turned the projector over in his hands and examines it. "Yep, it's yours, or it would be if it didn't have my name written on the bottom of it in Sharpie." My boyfriend calmly puts it under his arm with a smile, as LB gets tomato red again.
"I thought you would be smarter than that. You must have done that somehow. I bought that—"
LB is cut off as SG snatches the USB out of his bag and gives him a dirty look.
"Where did you buy it?"
"I've only seen it on one website before because they make their own line of projectors." LB gets flustered and runs out after yelling something about Amazon and how we were all manlets and whores for their chodes. GB and WB follow soon after him because the air is now awkward. Next time we meet up, my boyfriend bought a backpack with a lock on the zippers and keeps his projector in there. LB, WB, and GB all enter about 20 minutes late, and LB clears his throat loudly in front of me, BF, and SG. My BF looks at the both of us like, WTF does this guy want, and says, "What?"
"I'm ready for your apology now. From all of you."
He looks down at us like we are ants to him.
"Excuse me?" "No, that's not enough. I want a real apology."
"No, I'm not giving you an apology for trying to steal my projector and catching you. You'd better fuck off before I get mad." I know my boyfriend is very mad already, but he handles his anger well and rarely acts like this. And Lolly didn't do anything, and why would you even want an apology from her?
"She has been refusing my advances and didn't stick up for me when you heathens violated my rights."
No, my BF was mad. LB knew we were dating and was just instigating now. I saw GB and WB were recording with their shitty phones behind us. "BF, no, they're recording." I whisper to him and he looks back at the other two before they immediately cover and head towards the door. Now the club leader, CL, was actually in the class today and was watching this whole thing with the other guys, kind of incognito, and LB, GB, and WB hadn't seen her yet or met her at all in the past. They only had her phone number and Venmo or whatever, and she never told them that she was a girl. She had a short haircut that made her look like a lesbian, but she was engaged to a man already. I think she cut her hair due to a workshop accident where her hair was caught in a machine.
"What? You're fine with giving her to me? Not even going to fight for her?"
LB reaches for my arm and one of my pigtails and yanks me to my feet from where we were sitting, as I cry out in pain. "That's enough, you can let go of her right now," There will be none of this in this club. CL pulls LB's hand off of me, and LB immediately slaps my face and looks to CL like he's won. CL gets enraged and slaps him back as I stand there stunned. And I actually see stars because his slap was that hard.
You whore! How dare you put your hands on me? You will do what I tell you when I tell you, because I own this club, and I will have you thrown out of my club. A stupid,
and here he used a slur for a female lesbian,
has no...
I own this club, you asshole. I'm the club leader, and your donations do not make you any more important than the other members. I honestly look up at CL like a god because of her courage. She is the most amazing and righteous person I know. Get out now, your club membership is revoked and I am reporting you for sexual harassment and assault on campus grounds. LB looks like his whole world view had been shattered, but in a split second he looks angry again. He looks like he's about to punch CL and swings his arm back. He reams off a series of insults, including calling her a butch bitch. My BF grabs him by his greasy ponytail and starts dragging LB out the door before he can even start his swing, and whimpers and starts pleading for my boyfriend to let go. My boyfriend threw LB into the middle of the hall as WB and GB followed like lost puppies, cursing the rest of us out. It turns out that since CL has more classes than we do, she's about 25 I think, she couldn't come to classes as often as she liked, but had one of the girls in our group come early and put a camera on one of those big cabinets before our activities each day. She only did it for the last few weeks, so she didn't have the neckbeards squishing themselves up against the girls, and moaning or them bragging about them owning the club much. But she did have them removed from this campus location and relocated to another campus an hour away, with just the assault and attempted theft of the projector. The USB drive that LB almost took had most of the camera footage on it from the past few weeks, so that was a close one. When we all went over the footage, we saw WB and GB stealing food and drinks my boyfriend brought us, and either shoved it into their bags or into their cargo shorts. There was also a recorded moment of WB taking pictures up SG's skirt, and I can't remember which did it, but one of them masturbated in the back of the class, while the rest of us watched anime on the projector. Needless to say, all this footage went straight to the VP and the highest people we could find the email addresses to. 2. Right. So I've never had any real-life friends, due to being homeschooled since 6th grade due to bullying. And we lived in a small town, so there weren't any groups I could join. Now I'm getting my GED, we've moved to a big city, and I've started the grueling process of finding friends with little to no places to do so. So my sweet, kind mother decided she'd help me. Our neighbors said they had a son that, much like me, was homeschooled and didn't have many friends, and he was my age too. Great. I'd take anything that I could get. So, despite the fact that teenage boys don't usually end well for me, I've been blessed and cursed with a large chest and curvy body type. And teenage boys are... teenage boys. And said I'd love to meet him. We were still moving in at this point, and a few days later, neighbor swings by while we're working on the garage, son in tow. Now I'm sure the son is really nice, but he's really, really awkward. He's pretty hefty, has dyed hair, no facial hair, about my height, 5'6", etc. I'm not deterred by this because I'm always known for being kind to everyone, and I'm pretty blind to physical things like this, if I know it can be upsetting to bring up. I start trying to talk to him, but we both have social anxiety, so he's just been talking about our dogs, and he just stares or laughs awkwardly. Our parents pick up on this, and Mom decides to give him a tour of the house and show him my room. This is my first room that's just mine, and one of the first few times I've had my own bed as well. Shared both with my two siblings for about 12 years, so I'm pretty proud of being able to finally have my collection of posters, rocks, nerdy stuff, etc. out and on display. So we all go up and he starts talking about the nerdy things I have up. He's a little awkward, just like someone with social anxiety is, so I'm agreeing and matching the awkward energy so no one feels bad later. My niceness knows no bounds. Now I forget the events that led to this, but we eventually get to the living room and we're all talking. But my mom leaves and something in the conversation leads to him saying, "Hey, nerds can date," and then grinning nervously at me. I, having done this thing before, just smiled and showed off my lesbian necklace, a silver necklace with 2 linked Venus signs, and say, "Yeah, definitely into pussy." I'm actually asexual, but I figured this would be shocking enough for him to drop it. And he laughs nervously before leaving. I instantly feel a little bad, and when I go out too, he and his dad have gone, and my mom says that he told her,
"I think your daughter thought I was hitting on her, but I really wasn't."
And I feel worse because, yeah, anxiety really does be like that. About 2 or 3 weeks pass, and my siblings want me to go talk to him, to make friends with him. I'm anxious the entire time. I say fine, if they go with me, and we walk over to his house and ask his dad if we can go hang out with him. His parents seem ecstatic and say yes. His dad talks to me about his job while we wait for the kid to come downstairs. It was great. But then, we get upstairs. He shows me his own nerdy stuff. I'm interested in all of it, and making awkward comments just like he was for mine. And my siblings decide to leave because they hate me, I guess. Kid asks if I want to chill out and watch him play games. And I'm like, oh, sure, why not? At some point, in him explaining the game he's playing to me, we start talking about general life experience. I have commentary on something that was said, but it would mean exposing my very personal and upsetting information to him, so I stutter for a second before saying never mind. He tries to prod and get me to say what I was thinking. But I quickly explain that it's something upsetting and I don't want to kill the mood or, expose my deep personal trauma to a stranger. And he says, as confident as can be,
"Oh, nothing can faze me anymore. I saw porn when I was 9. Talk about traumatizing."
I sort of make a face and laugh because of course he doesn't know that I have PTSD, and his generic scarring stuff like that is actually the worst in his mind. Cool, no biggie, he doesn't know. But sadly, he mentioned porn. He suddenly goes on a tangent about how he used to watch My Little Pony porn, gives some details about his favorite pony to watch, and then says,
"But I don't do it anymore. I just watch normal people,
Then he vaguely describes his type of porn, etc. I am noticeably uncomfortable and try to explain that I am, saying I'm not that big into sexual things, still asexual, explain the basics of it, and he says okay and then goes right back to it. I stayed a little longer, hoping he would grow on me, but he ended up showing me his little sister's room. She passed away, and sort of stared vacantly in it while he talked about her favorite pair of headphones. I felt bad, obviously, so I got him out of there quickly, and then he shows me where he does his schoolwork. Finds a mask he left in there and puts it on and does some weird, I guess supposed to be martial arts moves. No clue, I'm still confused. I never went back after that because honestly, despite his social awkwardness, at the end of the day, some strange guy you don't know talking to you about his favorite type of MLP porn, when you sit next to him in his room, weird. I've dealt with a lot of neckbeards, partly because my mom's a model, and literally just attracts those type of guys. Partly because I'm rather pretty myself. I have tons more stories, and I've always meant to post them somewhere. 3. The cast. NB equals neckbeard, L equals lolly, my best friend, M equals me. Okay, so one day my best friend and I decided to go look for some new manga in a new store somewhere in our city. That store was small but had a lot to offer, and it was perfect neckbeard territory. I have never seen one before, but I heard a lot about them, and on this fateful day I had the utmost of luck to meet him. Let me explain a bit first. My friend, sweet girl who is about 5'4", 5'5", and a real lolly, higher voice, kind personality, small bust size, etc. We actually jokingly refer to her as a lolly, 18. Me, your average big titty goth girl, purple dyed hair, black lipstick, black dress with a red corset, and black high heels, 17. NB, around 5'8", greasy, smelled of old fish and a load of sweat, around 22 maybe, and between 350 to 400 pounds. So usually I prefer to avoid cities if possible since I don't like being around a lot of people. But on this day my friend L managed to get me out of my self-chosen prison cell, called my room, and dragged me to this manga shop. And that was fine. I like anime and manga, so this was more than tolerable. She is more of a romance type, while I prefer thrillers and all that psychological poop. So of course, as soon as we entered, she made a turn for said section. Now, there are huge-ass signs above the sections to help you find what you're looking for. It's even labeled with letters in alphabetical order. Yeah, that shop is effing amazing. As soon as my friend left to find some romance stuff, I noticed this guy standing further in the back in the hentai section. Yikes, man. Elle was so energetic, and he must have heard her excited talk because he turned around to investigate the disturbance. And all he saw was me. And it would have been best that way if it weren't for Elle coming back in that exact moment and excitedly trying to drag me toward the romance section to show me a manga that caught her interest. And he went nuts. I could see his eyes lighting up, and he immediately set whatever hentai he was currently reading down and started making his way towards us. But not in a rush. No, that would have been too obvious. He just watched us for a while, and honestly, like I gave a flying fuck about that. Let him stare. Us sexy ladies are way beyond his league. I told my friend I didn't care about romance and said that I would be looking around to find some old-timers like Inuyasha, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Tokyo Mew Mew. They were part of my childhood and some of my first animes as well, and I just wanted to feel the nostalgia again. And that meant that I left Elle alone with NB in not-so-far proximity. I searched and flew through the aisles of manga when I heard how NB started talking to Elle. Well, hello there, young lady. It looks like we both have the same interests. Elle, being the little cinnamon roll that she is.
Oh, hi, sir. Do I know you? Sorry, I'm not good with talking to unknown people.
I had already started slowly walking towards them. I didn't like that undertone in his voice, so I decided to come to Elle's rescue. Oh, don't worry, miss. You will get to know me soon enough. And he effing winked at her. At that moment, I was severely freaked out and trusted in Elle to handle herself. I still stayed close, though.
Yeah? And how so?
How about I take you out on a nice date and afterwards we could watch some anime at my house? And he winked again.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm here with a friend, and furthermore I have a boyfriend, but it was nice to meet you.
She is very uncomfortable at this point, and I am shocked by his straightforward strategy. So I decided to step in. Hey, Elle, did you find something?
Oh, hey, Em. No, sadly not. It's too expensive.
Oh, well, there will always be another opportunity, but I could also give you some money. Excuse me. I'm still here, and am taken aback by the fact that you'd ignore me. To Elle. But who do we have here? Is this your friend? I wanted to tell him to get lost, but Elle stepped in and continued being a cinnamon roll.
Yeah, this is Em. We have a lot to do today, so our intention was to leave now.
Really? But a maiden as fine as her should be spending her time with worthy people like me. Excuse me? Did you just insult my friend as unworthy of being around me? Damn, bro. You can't take a freaking rejection no matter how nice it was worded. Alright, listen up, chubby boy. Neither of us is interested in you or your creepy talk, and we'd appreciate it if you could shoo away and let us leave. Oh boy, he didn't like that. His face rivaled a tomato, and he walked to stand right in front of me. No, you listen up, you edgy walking corpse. You look like you just returned from a funeral. The funeral of your decency. Oh, sorry, honey, did I strike a nerve? How was your funeral anyways? It mustn't have been easy to escape your coffin, 'cause, judging by your smell, you must have laid in there for a good while. His eyes filled with tears, and he stopped off while ranting about how inappropriate and unnatural both my appearance and character were. Boy, if you can't take the truth, then sorry, but you picked the wrong bitch to mess with. Elle and I quickly exited the store, and I told her that I'd buy us ice cream on my account. The rest of the day was pretty great, but oh boy, that one moment sure wasn't. 4. Cast. Me, a nerdy girl who was and is fairly open about my love for anime, comics, games. Pretty short, like 5 foot tall. Appear a couple years younger than my actual age. Perfect neckbeard bait, right? The weeb beard guy, I'll call him Todd. Tall, around 5'7", 5'8". So scrawny it looked like the wind was going to blow him away. Long, thin, and extremely greasy hair. Always wore the exact same sweater. I remember once he openly admitted he rarely showered because he had better things to do. Didn't have a neck beard, but did have chin whiskers. My best friend, we'll call her Lucy. Another nerdy girl with the same interests as me, quite a bit taller than me, a sassy sweetheart. This story is from a few years ago, back in high school. I was like 16. It all started at my high school's anime club, surprise, surprise, right? I had joined anime club my freshman year, and by junior year I was president. My experiences there were amazing, and I made a lot of friends. The presidents of previous years took it into their hands to make sure the club got rid of their bad rep with the school, the fault of some really bad weeaboos wreaking havoc in classrooms and harassing other students. And they ensured everyone that went had a nice experience. I felt it was my responsibility to continue that. So first day of meeting as president comes, and I get to engage the ice-breaking activities. At the end, I noticed there was one guy that sat in a corner, Todd, and hadn't joined the activity or had anyone to talk to. Being the enthusiastic and naive child I was, I sat next to him and tried to make conversation. He talked about how he had difficulty socializing, which was normal for a lot of people in anime club, and how he has never had friends before. I did my best to show him we were all friends here and made him feel welcome. He started hanging out with me and my friends in the mornings and lunch. About a week later, I received an email. All cabinet members' emails were available on the Anime Club page for attendees to leave suggestions, report anything, etc. The email was from Todd. It included a little comic he made using a dress-up game, and the text said something along the lines of,
I made a comic of me giving you a precious stone because I'm starting to have a crush on you.
I replied with something along the lines of, I'm flattered, but I'm not looking for a relationship. I'd like to be friends, though. The next day at school, things seemed normal. He would have fun and engaging conversations with me and Lucy, have lunch with me and my friends, and walk home with me and Lucy. Lucy and I would part ways since our houses were a few blocks away from each other, and Todd would get picked up where we parted ways. We became kind of a trio and everything was all good. Eventually he started walking home with me all the way to the park, across the street from my house. Later on his mom would straight up pick him up from my driveway. I didn't think much of it. He wanted to walk home with me to keep me company and socialize since I usually walked alone. A few weeks passed by and I started having feelings for a friend I gamed with online. Let's call him Dante. I told my friend Lucy about it and of course Todd was there when I was talking about it too. After school, Todd blew up my phone with texts about how he asked me first, and he's been patiently waiting, how he walks me home every day, etc. I have to explain to him for about an hour how that is not how dating works, and he didn't stop arguing until I was blunt and said people aren't buffets, where it's first come, first served, and that he was most likely just infatuated with me. I explained how my feelings for Dante were developed over time of being friends with him, and we have gone through different situations together, along with just the mere fact that we got along really well. I was in shock at the way Todd was acting and told him I had to go do homework. The next morning at school he sat with me and Lucy but said nothing. He would follow us around like a shadow, not saying a word. I figured he was just sulking. I forgot how much time passed by like that, about a week or so. He would walk home with me without saying a word and then just stand there on my driveway. I would wait until his mom picked him up because I felt it was rude not to invite him, but I didn't want to. He made me feel uneasy, the silence, and that his mom wouldn't pick him up until 4 or 4:30, even though we would arrive around 3:30. Another issue that was going on ever since he had found out about Dante. He wouldn't talk to me or anyone during school, but demanded my undivided attention immediately after school, until it was really late at night. I would explain that I couldn't talk a lot because I needed to do my homework or I would fall behind. He also knew I was taking 3 AP classes at the time, so he knew I had a lot of work to do. He expected me to answer his texts immediately. I brought it up to him, and he said he didn't know how to interact with people since he had never had friends before. To which I was understanding and tried to work with him, but he would always make me feel guilty for not talking to him by complaining about how lonely and meaningless his life was, and how I gave his life meaning and blah blah blah. Looking back, he was really manipulative, but I believed he authentically was lonely, and I really wanted to help him and thought that over time, after seeing what a good friendship was like, he wouldn't feel so badly about himself or his life anymore. Soon after he confessed his love to Lucy, she rejected him. She told me she suspected that he was just rebounding to her since she was my best friend, and he saw her as the closest thing to me. Later in the day, Todd told me about him asking out Lucy, and explained that all along he liked her, and that he was only infatuated by me. That same weekend was the Anime Club Halloween party, which was at Lucy's house. Todd was excited for this because he was in charge of taking photos of Anime Club events for our page, and it made him feel like an important part of the event, since it was his duty to document all the memories, and we all figured it was a great way to integrate him more into the group. It was a costume party, and of course it was greatly a cosplay-style party. I got to Lucy's before the party to help her set up and get ready together. We both wore stereotypical weeb cosplays. I had a maid outfit on, and she wore a Japanese schoolgirl uniform. As we finished setting up decorations, 4 of the guests arrived. Along with them was Todd. I went to greet everyone and sat with them in the living room. Lucy figured that I should entertain them while she finishes setting everything up in the kitchen, so she ran to the cupboard to get Cards Against Humanity for us to play. Todd tapped my shoulder and whispered,
"I wish I had my camera on. That was a perfect panty shot."
I thought it was some kind of joke with bad taste, and I just replied with, "Dude, why?" Much to my surprise, he was serious and described how her skirt flipped up at the right angle, or some crap like that. Once the game was set up, I went with Lucy to the kitchen to let her know what Todd had said. She was disturbed and tried to be more careful with her skirt. The party was fun, and Todd wasn't being creepy the whole time. As it started to get later and people started leaving, we headed to the upstairs loft area to play some games since there were few enough people to be able to take turns playing without it taking forever. After one of my turns, I stood behind the chair Lucy was sitting to cheer her on during her round of Smash Bros. I was leaning on the back of her chair, when all of a sudden I felt something slide from behind me and land in between my feet. I looked at the floor to find a camera pointing with the lens upwards. When I picked it up, I saw it was on and recording video. I looked behind me and saw it was Todd. I gave him his camera, angry and confused on what happened, and asked him WTF his problem was. He just responded,
"Your outfit is cute and I noticed you have thigh highs and bloomers. I have a weakness for thigh highs and the only thing better are bloomers."
I had no idea how to react and ended up just walking away from him, trying to find a seat next to Lucy, and avoided conversation with him as much as possible, as I was still confused and angry about what happened with me, and earlier that day with Lucy. He wasn't creepy for the rest of the party, but to this day that interaction still bothers me, along with the other creepy things he did later on, because things were not even near done there. Looking in hindsight, those were more than enough red flags to cut off contact immediately. But I wanted to give the poor kid the benefit of the doubt, and naively believe that he just didn't know what he was doing. 5. Players. Me, female, early 30s, but I look no older than early to mid-20s, as I am mistaken for a college-aged kid all the time. I have brown hair and eyes, always wear glasses because I'm nearsighted, and 5'3", average build and very nerdy. I spend most of my free time in Facebook groups and sleeping. Elle just turned 18, lives in the UK, and is basically the group's sweetheart. She has pink hair and everyone loves her. We aren't what I'd call close, but I don't really want to hurt her either. I just want to be cordial with her. This is important. And my boyfriend. 23, 5'10", super skinny, and everything I love. He lives in the US like I do, but about 800 miles away. We do have an age gap, but we mesh well. He's very level-headed, unlike me who gets emotional. NB, former friend, 22 and 5'6", from what I remember. He has scraggly hair, wears glasses, and calls himself a hippie. He likes the hippie stuff like pot and psychedelics, philosophy, and things like that. He's also very insecure about himself and has divulged very personal details about his sex life to me, that I may tell in a different story if you want to hear about that. Warning, it's sad and pathetic. Nothing too graphic. We were at one point very close. I don't know what happened, but I have my theories and they're all neckbeardy. He didn't show the neckbeard signs too hard, so it was difficult to tell at first. A lot of this story was I had it coming. Also, I'm going to change the waifu names to make it less obvious. And yes, you can date and have a waifu. I've been loyal to mine for 3 years, and I've been single for about 6 months of that time. There has been this particular character for me that has been a pain in my side for a long time. For whatever reason, I have no idea why people love Elsa from Frozen so much. Like, nothing about her is even that great. She looks bad, even though everyone says she's super hot. Her voices in English and Japanese are horrible, and she's just the absolute worst. I just saw someone in the group make a post with Elsa, and I just snapped. I made a passive-aggressive post and said, "Post overrated waifus." This backfired on me because I didn't realize that Asuka from Evangelion was so hated. 3 different people posted Asuka pictures. Come on, one is enough. This really upset Elle because Asuka is her waifu. I don't know much about Asuka since I haven't seen Eva yet. Side note, I have seen Eva, I just haven't seen the show Elle's actual waifu is from. So I couldn't weigh in other than just seeing Asuka pictures so often and people hating on her. I apologized to Elle and deleted my original post. I then made a new one directly saying how much I disliked Elsa. I was surprised at how much positive feedback I got. Then NB came in and said,
I'm sorry, but are you hating on someone else's waifu when you get so upset when people hate on yours?
I was put off by this. For one, waifu can also mean just any female character. So it's as if he's saying I can't hate any character ever. Also, this specific group was made for anyone to post anything as long as it followed Facebook guidelines. I went off and called him out for not being sorry, and then basically called him out on saying that I couldn't hate any female character ever. I didn't read his entire wall of text he posted after, but he did mention something about the thread kissing up to Elle. That did hit a nerve, and I deleted it so fast. Elle has a ton of orbiters, white knights, and creeps all over the internet. I really only want to be cordial to her, not gain special favor and whatever. After ranting to N about NB's behavior, I realized how idiotic the argument of "you can't bitch about X if you don't like X happening to you" is not a good argument. Like, I could bitch all I want about Elsa because I'm not attacking a person. If someone says, "Hey, can you stop?" of course I'll stop. The thing is, I can still complain and moan if someone says bad stuff about my waifu. Like I just said, Elsa was terrible and you can't change my mind on my OP. I did make a status update about this, and NB comes in and says,
I didn't say you can't like things, just try to see it from their point of view.
That was when it happened. I had in the past been bullied about my waifu by people in my own community, from the game where she came from. It was on a post about me trying to give away a cell phone cases of all things, and they bullied me to the point of crying my eyes out for nearly 2 hours straight. When he said that, I was brought back to that dark time and had a meltdown. I panicked and I was sobbing so hard. I tried to read his message, but I couldn't think. I couldn't read past, I didn't assume anything, but he said something about assuming I had read a hate post that made me cry, and that wasn't the case at all. I've seen hate posts targeted at my waifu, and I normally can make a silly comment or shrug it off. This wasn't a hate post, this was harassment and bullying targeted at me, and they said things about her I don't want to repeat. I'm not emotionally charged, so I'm not losing my mind. But I can feel my heart race, and I do get angry thinking about the vile things they said to me. During my freak-out, N told me just block NB. I didn't want to because of what he had said, but when N said that I realized whatever NB and I had was gone. I blocked him on both my Facebook accounts. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 27? Yes it is, there we go. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. By God, were they thin on the ground. I've got some feelers out hopefully for the next one, but this one, even after the delay of a week, was still hard to put together, so I don't know what's going on. I'm considering looking into nice guy stories. This should have a similar kind of vibe to them. We shall see. I'll have to come up with different voices though, because the Neckbeard voices are very Neckbeard specific. It's a challenge, but a good challenge. Let me know what you think. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of your... Yes, we can hear you barking, yes. You take care of yourself too. And take very good care of yourselves.